we're going to look today at one more Old Testament story, one of my favorite books of the Bible, mainly because of Nehemiah's vision, both to do a work and then to let somebody else do a work. And we're going to talk about both of those things today, which I think are important. And so I hope that we can gain something from this. So, I almost, this week, so when we read this, it would have been like Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it was Tuesday. I almost changed my entire sermon, my approach to the sermon, because I saw some things that I had not seen before, in even leading up to it. But I knew I couldn't change the entire sermon because Pastor Jay was on vacation this week. He was on a cruise in the Caribbean, the perfect place to be this week, right? And I knew he wouldn't have access or have studied if I just changed everything and change it to look like ours. And so I said, no, I'm not going to change it. And so I kept it the same. But I'll tell you what was on my mind. I noticed all of these D words, and some D's are better than other D's, right? I almost titled the sermon, D's are better than D's. But I didn't. Actually, the title of the sermon is Growth in Spite of Opposition. And I think we can learn something from this. But these are the bad D's that are in this passage. Deception, disturbance, division, discord, discouragement, distraction, discrediting. If you've ever been a part of any organization, there are some people who specialize in these D's, right? These D's, whatever how y'all say it, these D's. They specialize in deception, disturbance, division, discord, discouragement, distraction, discrediting. I mean, if you're ever around them, they're always laying out one of these D's. You know, they're discrediting somebody, they're discouraging you, they're sowing discord. It's not just in the church. Like, these aren't just church words. If you operated in a company, if you've worked on a job, you've seen people do this very thing. You see people do it in the community. It's amazing how these things play out. But then there are some other D's that play out in the story that are better than the first D's. So D's are better than D's. It says things like determination and discipline, decisiveness, discernment, dedication. Now, I just want to ask you a question. If you have your choice of people to hang around, these people or these people, who do you want to be around? Do you want to be around people who have discernment and are dedicated? Or do you want to be around people who are divisive and show discord and are always discouraging? Which one do you choose? Because you get to choose. And what I would tell you is, because this is really how I want you to think about this today, what I would tell you is, if in your environment there is discord and discouragement and divisiveness, and you can't figure out who it is, it might be you. It's like nope. That came out too fast. Every family has that different person, right? Y'all know what I wanted to say now. It already came out. If you can't figure out who that person is, tag, you're it, right? That's the thing. And so if in the organization where you are, there's divisiveness and discord and discouragement and division and distraction and discrediting and deception, you might need to check yourself. And these things create a culture. They create cultures in families. They create culture in business. They create culture in churches. They create culture in communities. And there are places that you can work and go and be, and it's amazing what they can do with people because they have created this culture that it helps people blossom. There are also some cultures that they can take the greatest of all talents and drag them down to nothing. And so all of these D's, if you will, show up in this story, and I hope that I can convey this to you. I hope I can convey the culture that you're creating or the culture that you want to create and what you should be thinking about as you go through life. So to give you a little bit of background, exile they're close to the end. They're getting ready to go back. There's some people already in Jerusalem. Nehemiah is working for the king. Okay, so that's the clear picture. Some of them are still in exile. Some of them are still serving the king. Nehemiah would have been one that was serving the king. And he has heard about the disrepair that the city that he loves is in. So the city of Jerusalem is in great disrepair, and he wants to do something about it. He's heartbroken. And so his countenance is such that the king notices that something's wrong. And so it opens the door for him to ask the king for some assistance. And so the king gives him some assistance. He writes letters to all the governors of the land and sends them with Nehemiah to go be able to get the materials that he needs and have the blessing that he needs to be able to rebuild the wall for his people. And so that's where we're at in this story. They are rebuilding the wall. That's what's going on. He has left the king, gone to the city to rebuild the wall around the city. Not many homes. So that's the thing. Not many homes are standing at this point, but his goal is to create a safe environment for the people to be able to live. And there is this group of people, which I introduced in the text, but they're throughout the whole book of Nehemiah, that are in opposition to the work that he is doing. And so today we're going to talk about how this struggle comes about, Nehemiah's role in leading the people to be able to do what they want to do, and then when Nehemiah steps away. So here's the first thing I want you to know. Opposition is not a spiritual gift. Some people believe it's their gift. Some people believe that God has called them to oppose everything. And they don't always have reasons. They're just in opposition to pretty much anything that happens. And sometimes we will even spiritualize our opposition by saying things, well, I just need to keep people honest, or we should test the spirits. As a matter of fact, I knew of one man, his church had regular business meetings, and they would cast ballots. So it would be a secret ballot. You would write your vote on a ballot, and every time, it didn't matter what it was, he voted no, because he wanted to see if they were honest. He thought it was his job to keep the people counting the votes honest. And so every single time, if they had voted on the Lord's return, he was voting no. Because he just wanted to see, are they honest? Are the people who are counting honest people? And so it's one of those things. Some people, listen, I believe some things are about honor and some things are about honesty, but some things are just ornery. Some people are just ornery. Some people are just like they are going to be your opposition, and there is nothing that you can do about it. So it says what we read in the beginning: Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall, and that no gaps remained, though we had not yet set up the doors in the gates. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them in one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But I realized they were plotting to harm me. So I replied by sending this message to them: I am engaged in a great work, so I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? I want to say this to everybody in this room. And it doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter what your role is. It doesn't matter where you work and what you do. Sometimes you need to tell people, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not hanging out with you. I'm not meeting with you. I'm not giving you an appointment. You're not taking my time. Why? Because the thing that you're doing is more important than what they want you to do. I heard it said like this: don't allow somebody else's urgent to interrupt what is your important. And too often we let everybody else's dilemmas and problems and, hey, I need you. Hey, can I talk to you? Hey, can I do this? Hey, will you come here? Hey, I need you over here. Their urgent suddenly turns into our urgent, and we miss our important, and we're over here chasing everybody else's urgent, and what is important for us to do, the good work that God has called us to do, we miss. Sometimes it takes us away from our family. Sometimes it takes us away from our spiritual development. Sometimes it takes us away from working on our health, and we're over here chasing. Listen, I know people who people love them because when they need them, they are always there. But their health, physically and mentally, is trash because they spend all of their time at somebody else's urgent beck and call and never working on what's important to them. And if you're always at somebody else's beck and call, if you're always, when they say come, you leave what you're doing. You leave your spouse, you leave your children, you leave the call that you have on your life, you leave your business to go chase after something else. It can cost you. And Nehemiah was smart enough to understand. First of all, he had discernment. That's one of the D's, right? They're trying to distract him. That's another D. And he has discernment. They're just trying to harm me. They're trying to take me away from the good work. And what he sends them back is this message: I'm engaged in a great work. I'm just going to drill down right here because I've hit a hot spot, and I can tell by the look on your face. Sometimes you need to tell folks that your children are a great work, and you're not going to do what they want you to do because you need to work with your children. Right? Sometimes you need to be in church, and you need to tell your friend you can't go to the club on Saturday night, because you need to be home in time to go to bed, so when the alarm goes off, you're not snooze, oops, I missed church. Right? I'm just saying. Sometimes we allow somebody else's invitation to do things to take us away from what is our important work. I don't have my phone up here because I don't want to be distracted. It's one of the few places I don't take it. But it is the great distractor. It is the great, hey, here I got something urgent, right? That ding sets off that dopamine in your head, and, you go, whoo, somebody needs me. Woohoo, because we all want to be needed, right? Somebody needs something from me. We got an email, we got a text, we got a notification. Somebody said something about something I posted on social media. And the dopamine goes off. That's all it is. It's just a dopamine tick in our, y'all don't realize that. It's playing with your mind. It's going ding, 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 ding. And you're like, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. And so we get it and we want it, and it distracts us. Billions of dollars, probably close to trillions at this point, but billions of dollars of work are not done in the United States today for nothing other than social media. And it's distracting us. It's like, come over here, and we can't say I'm doing an important work. And what we're doing is important. We have to know what we're supposed to be doing. We have to make sure our priorities are straight. And he goes on to say, 4 times they sent the same message, and each time I gave the same reply. Here's the thing I want to tell you about people who want to distract you or pull you away or discourage you. One, they won't just walk by and say, hey, come with me. They will keep coming back over and over and over and over again. It says the 5th time, Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand, and this is what it said. There is a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me it is true. So he says there's a rumor, and the dude, Geshem is his buddy who is trying to stir up trouble, is the one who confirms it. And by the way, no matter what you want to believe, you can find somebody that will tell you you're right. If you're looking for confirmation, there's a 100% chance you can find somebody to confirm what you believe. 100%. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. All you got to do is read the newspapers. Or just read anything. And there are people who have been confirmed. They think they're right. He says, there's a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me that it's true, that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you're building the wall, according to his reports. You plan to be their king. He also reports that you have appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you. Look, there is a king in Judah. You can be very sure that this report will get back to the king in Babylon, okay? So I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. Here's what I will tell you about people who are opposed to you. When they don't get their way, they will eventually resort to lying. People who are in opposition to what you're trying to do, they may say you shouldn't do this, and you say I'm going to do it, and what their next response is to fudge the truth, because you know what? Sometimes it's easy to say, well, you believe this and I believe this, and we're just going to go separate ways. But if you can prove that somebody has bad motives, then maybe you can shine enough light on them to get people to turn against them. And so they start this rumor about Nehemiah, that Nehemiah wants to be king. Nehemiah wants to rise to the place of being a king, and they're going to rebel. Nehemiah's going to be a king. And he says, when word gets back to the king of Babylon, you're going to suffer for this. There is going to be a problem. And you just have to understand, people will not be satisfied in opposition for you to continue. If you tell somebody, I'm doing a great work. Let's go back to the kid example. You have something for your kids and somebody else needs you to do something, and you say, I need to be with my kids tonight. They won't go tell people, you know what? I admire them. They love their kids and see how important it is for them to invest in their lives. And so they chose to do that because they saw it was more important. No, that's it. Can you believe? I asked them 3 times to go do something and they wouldn't. They act like they're better than I am. Who do they think they are? Right? Because it's not good enough for them to oppose what you're doing or try to distract you from what you're doing. What they want to do is get people to side with them. And so he goes on to say, he says, I replied, there is no truth in any part of your story. You're making up the whole thing, period. Some of y'all need to know where the period goes. Y'all with me? You're out trying to defend yourself, and you're writing books and sending text messages that are this long, all trying to tell people why you're right and what you should do and why you need to do what you need to do. You just might need to say, what you're saying is a bunch of junk, period. No, just put the period there. Just be done. Shut up. Stop putting gas on the fire. Just be done with it. Like I can see him right now laying brick. You're lying, period. He just went back to work. He didn't come down from the wall to argue with them. He didn't go around the town. Did you see this letter that they wrote? It's a lie. I want everybody to know. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. If you go around town trying to tell everybody that the letter's a lie, you're going to introduce the letter to some folks that never saw it to begin with. That's the first thing you need to know. So you're roping in people that don't even need to be a part of it. And secondly, people are going to believe who they want to believe no matter what you do. The greatest asset that you have is not your ability to refute what they say. It is the ability to be consistent in your action and prove them wrong over a period of time. It is the ability to keep going down a certain track and say, this is what I believe I'm supposed to be doing. And when at some point they won't be able to refute it. At some point they can't say anything about it. But if what you do is try to stop and refute what they say, listen, what does the Bible say about arguing with a fool? At some point when you argue with fools, you can't tell the difference. Right? Come on. Let's go on. Second, you must be comfortable in your calling. Are you comfortable with who you are? I would tell you that in my experience, some of the most intimidating people in all of the world are people who are comfortable in their own skin. They know what they're supposed to do. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not good at. And they're fine about it. They're good. They're okay with it. Some of the most frustrated people are the people who cannot acknowledge that they're not good at something, think they're good at something that they're not, or want to make everybody believe that they're something that they're not. And so they're always trying to portray something that just doesn't work. You have to be comfortable in your own skin. I prefer to be around people who don't need my approval. Right? I mean, because like even when I interview people for jobs here at the church, I'll ask them, like, do you need affirmation? If you need constant affirmation, I'm not your guy. Right? I don't need to be around people who constantly need to be told you're doing a great job. Right? I don't need cheerleaders standing below the wall going, you can build it. Yes, you can. You can build it. Anybody can. You know, I just don't need that. Like, I don't need it. And I don't do good with, I ain't a good cheerleader either. You can see that. I don't do good with people who are like that, because here's the thing I understand. Most opposition, not all, some opposition is about right and wrong, but most opposition, the seed of it is that they are uncomfortable with what you're comfortable with. That's usually the seed of opposition. You're comfortable going in this direction and they're not comfortable with it, and they're wanting you to come to make them comfortable. And that's the thing we need to understand. Almost all opposition comes because somebody else is not comfortable, not you. It's not about you, it's about them. I'm not comfortable, and I want you to understand I'm not comfortable. He says, later, I went to visit Shemaiah, son of Deliah, and grandson of Mehetabel. I have butchered more words in the last 9 months. Doing a podcast every day, man, I have tore some words up. I have no idea some days if I get them right or not. But you can read them, sound it like you want to. Said, who was confined to his home, he said, let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the doors shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight. But I replied, should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple to save his life? No, I won't do it. I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he had uttered his prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. So this guy is a prophet. He's been hired by Tobiah and Sanballat to tell him to do this particular thing. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse and discredit. There goes another D word there. They would be able to accuse and discredit me. Not only does it appear, because this in layman's terms, this on the outside looks like it's a good thing, right? Come on, let's come to the church. We'll meet inside the church. You'll be safe. I'm a prophet. Everything will be fine. Everything that looks good on the outside isn't always good. There are a couple of things you need to know here about his response. One, he said, I'm the leader, and somebody in my position don't need to go run and hide. He said, secondly, I've not been made in a place where I can go in and act like a priest, if you will, and go in the temple, and so I shouldn't hide in the temple. And then it says he had this discernment. So he had discernment about the others. He had discernment about this guy, and he understood that he was giving him a prophecy, thus saith the Lord. And I will say this often, just because somebody says, the Lord said, don't mean you should believe it. As a matter of fact, the Word of God is the thing that you should always measure it against. And sometimes people will even quote Scripture in an attempt to get you to do something that God doesn't want you to do, because that's not the context what he was speaking about. And he says this, remember, oh my God, all the evil things that Tobiah and Sanballat have done, and remember Noadiah, the prophet, and all the prophets like her who tried to intimidate me. Remember last week that psalm at the end, it says, may your babies be smashed against the rocks. This is a very similar prayer. He's not that graphic. He's just like, Lord, don't forget them. I'm going to go do what I need to do, but don't forget them. He says, don't allow them to get away with all of the evil that they have done. Here's the third thing. Be prepared for divisive people. There are some people who are never, Never, never happy. Never. I'm laughing in my mind. I'm trying to debate whether I want to say this or not. Our grandson, we asked him about something the other day, and without missing a beat, he said, that lady ain't never smiled in her life. And I just died laughing because he was probably right. And some people are never happy. And there are some of you in this room who believe that if you can do A or B or C or D, if you can achieve this, that everybody's going to be happy. I want to just take the pressure off of you and help you understand you are never going to get to a place where you make everybody happy. It's not possible. You just can't do it. You may make most of them happy. You may make the majority of them happy. You may make the overwhelming majority of them happy. But you are not going to make everybody happy. Like, think about it. Like the highest approval ratings I can ever remember in my entire life were at 9/11 for George Bush. It was like 95%. Because of, the country came together, like everybody's praying, you're rallying, hey, we're going to do that. Let me tell you, I don't want that 5% to be my friend. It ain't got nothing to do with politics. But what I want you to understand is there are at least 5% of people who are going, I don't care if we do got an enemy. I don't care if we all do need to come together. I'm just not going to like it. There are people like that who are just not going to like anything. And it doesn't matter what you do, they are going to be present. And they're always going to be trying to be divisive. So it says this, so on October the 2nd, how about that? I didn't put that in there. So on October the 2nd, the wall was finished, just 52 days after we had begun. That's a feat. That shows you the vision that he had and the way he was able to mobilize people to work. That's an amazing feat, 52 days. He says, when our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized this work had been done with the help of God. Let me tell you about people who oppose you when you're doing the right thing. And you do it long enough that God's work gets accomplished. They stand off to the side going, And then sometimes they even try to come around and join what you're doing. With crow feathers coming out of their mouth because they're trying to swallow the crow that they're having to eat to be able to participate in what you've done because they have criticized what you have done for so long. It says during those 52 days, many letters went back and forth between Tobiah and the nobles of Judah. For many in Judah had sworn allegiance to him because his father-in-law was Shechaniah, son of Era, and his son Jehohanan was married to the daughter of Meshullam, son of Berechiah. I think I got them all right. They kept telling me about Tobiah's good deeds, and then they told him everything I said, and Tobiah kept sending threatening letters to intimidate me. I said this earlier, and I want to re-emphasize this. One of the greatest testimonies you have is to successfully live in your calling. To do what God has called you to do and keep on doing it. There are going to be people who think you've lost your mind, who will criticize you, who will demean you, who will lie about you, who will try. Just this is what God has called me to do and keep walking in that direction. And when you are successful at it, that's one of the greatest testimonies you can have, is to say, I did what I was supposed to do, and I've honored God with the life that he has given me. But notice in the group, like, don't you think there should be 100% of people going, yes, yes, we built the wall, yay, right? It should be 100%. No, there are still some lying, divisive, sowing discord scoundrels who are writing letters to Tobiah. Tobiah's writing letters to them. They're going to Nehemiah, telling Nehemiah, oh, he's such a great guy. I saw a quote this week, and it was great. I haven't figured out how to use it other than I'm getting ready to. A snake that sheds its skin only does so to get bigger. When people come around, oh, they've changed, they're different, they've turned over a new leaf. Yeah, but I know what the other side of the leaf looks like. I don't need you turning the leaf over. I need your leaf transformed in the name of Jesus. Y'all with me? There's a difference. And so they're still sharing these letters back and forth, and they would go to Nehemiah, and then they would go from Nehemiah to Tobiah and say, this is what Nehemiah said. And all the time, look what's happening. He's writing these people that are loyal to him these nice letters saying, hey, put in a good word for me. At the same time, he's sending threatening letters to Nehemiah saying, hey, if you don't straighten up, I'm going to kill you. Be careful of people who talk this way and then this way. Watch them with everything you've got. And here's what I would tell you. If you're always surprised by opposition, you're going to remain on the defensive. If you go, I can't believe somebody is opposing this. The better way is to prepare that somebody is going to oppose it. Somebody isn't going to like it. Somebody is going to have a problem with whatever it is. I mean, name it. They're going to have a problem with you dating this person, marrying this person. They're going to have a problem with you having a child. They're going to have a problem with you living in this city or taking this job. They're going to have a problem with you doing it this way. They're going to have a problem if you homeschool, problem if you do public school. They're just going to have a problem. Stop living in a myth that you believe that people eventually are going to stop having problems. No, there are some people who are just going to have problems, and they're going to have problems until Jesus comes. They're going to have a problem with you. And if you figure out all of their problems, let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to have a problem with somebody else. If y'all want me to get all prophetic on you, here's my prophecy. Somebody opposes you right now and you don't even know it. And in the future, some other people are going to oppose you and you won't be able to see it coming. That's as prophetic as you'll get me up here. I'm just telling you, no matter what you do, there are going to be people there are people right now who oppose you coming to church this morning. Some of you came to church in spite of the opposition. Some of you are trying to live right in spite of people telling you that's stupid or ridiculous. There will always, 100% of the time, be divisive people who want to oppose the good work that you're trying to do in your life, and you just have to be prepared for it. Last thing, know the limits of your assignment. Man. This is the tough one for me. Because most of us in this room think we can conquer anything. Like if we set our minds to it, we can do it. And the reason why this one is a tough one for me is because I'm getting older. I'm not old. I remember when I thought what I am now was old. I've changed my mind. And now somebody else is old. But I'm getting older. My path is getting narrower. The length of time, for example, that I can do what I'm doing today will eventually come to an end. And what I can't afford to do is do it until I die. Because let me tell you what happens if I do it until I die. Everything else will die with me. There has to come a time when I say, you know what? Somebody else is better suited to do this. It's time to pass the baton. Nehemiah is this great visionary. Nehemiah is the one who instigated this entire thing. Nehemiah saw what needed to be done. He went back. He led this great movement so that in 52 days they could build the wall and get it accomplished. Now his people were safe and they could build houses once again. They could have their families. They could do so in peace. But then it says, after the wall was finished and I had set up the doors and the gates, the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites were appointed. I gave the responsibility of governing Jerusalem to my brother Hananiah, along with Hananiah, the commander of the fortress, for he was a faithful man who feared God more than most. I said to them, do not leave the gates open during the hottest part of the day, and even while the gatekeepers are on duty, have them shut and bar the doors. Appoint the residents of Jerusalem to act as guards, everyone on a regular watch. Some will serve at sentry posts and some in front of their own homes. Let me tell you what's getting ready to happen. Nehemiah, he's done his job, and he's turning it over to somebody else. He's like, I've done what I've been called to do. He could have been king. That's the truth. He could have said, man, we're going to hang right here. He could have been governor. No problem. He certainly could have been the one in charge because he had been the one in charge for the last couple of months. I don't know whether it was his skill set or he knew that was the end of his assignment, or I don't know. I do know he had promised the king that he would return, and we'll find out that he comes back later. I don't know if he realized, okay, I am skilled in getting people to build. I am skilled in getting people motivated to accomplish what they need to accomplish, but the administration of this city is not my thing. I need to go. I don't know which it is, but there was a transition time in his life, and transitions can be difficult, right? It is why most founders fail and somebody else has to take the company to the next level. Because most founders have this gift of entrepreneurship or discovery or figuring something out, and they are hard charger and they make a lot of mess while they're doing it, and they leave a lot of weight, and then they get this thing started and they think, okay, I started it all, I own it, I need to run it. And then they run it in the ground. Whereas if they had stepped aside and turned it over to somebody else, they would have found a measure of success that they would not have found any other way. The same is true in our lives. There are so many places in our lives that we need to come to a transition point and say, hey, they need to do it. But we're so afraid of what people are going to think of us if we're no longer in charge, or we're no longer the one doing this, or we're no longer the one handling this. What are people going to think of me? That we hold on to stuff that long ago we should have let go of. Parenting. Come on now. That's one. We parent them, and sometimes we hold on way too long. Your job is not to raise good kids. As a matter of fact, one of the problems in the world is that we've raised a lot of really good children. And so now all we have is old children. Your job is to raise people that transition into being good adults. That's your job. Your job is to put them in experiences and teach them things so that when they become an adult, they thrive instead of going, Mama, what do I do? Mama, come make my bed. Right? And we don't see the transition. I'm not telling you to start it at 10, like you got to. But you got to have that transition. It's why so many people, when their kids leave home, there's a reason why they talk about empty nests being a struggle for people, because they look around like, I ain't got nothing else to do. What am I going to do now? The two highest times of divorce after the first 2 years, that's kind of scary, ain't it? The first 2 years are the peak. Okay, but after the first 2 years, the highest times of divorce are empty nest when the kids leave, and retirement when they have no job. The kids leave and they turn around like, oh, you're all I got left? Whew. And they haven't figured out that they need to transition to the next phase of life. Same thing happens at retirement. Retirement, they've both been working often in the workplace. They've had something to do all day. They spent maybe an hour together, maybe 2 hours together a day. Even on the weekends, they have other things to do. Then all of a sudden, they're retired. They're in the house together looking at each other like, oh, what was I thinking 40 years ago? Right? You haven't prepared for the transition. There comes a time in all of our lives where there's a transition, and we have to be prepared for it. We have to understand that sometimes we need to be able to move on successfully to a new way of doing things. And these transitions happen all the time. Kids to adulthood, businesses to new owners, pastor to pastor, single to married. Think about that transition. That was an eye-opener for some of you, wasn't it? Working to retired, which I talked about. You've got to know these transitions in your life. You got to know the timing of it. You got to know when somebody's better off doing something else, and then be able to move and be secure in what God has called you to do. All of us have got to be there at some point in our life. Timing matters, and you have to know the limits of your assignment. Jesus knew about timing. As a matter of fact, one of the things that you will read frequently in the Gospels is he will say, my time has not yet come. My time is not fully come. My time, it's not time yet. Jesus, come and do that. It's not time yet. Timing mattered to Jesus. Listen, the timing is just as important as the action. If you get the action right and the timing wrong, you very well may be going to make a mistake. It's kind of like the kid who kicks the field goal after somebody's called timeout. I'm glad he made it. But if he misses it when time works, he got it right at the wrong time. The same is true in our lives. We have to be able to do that. And Jesus would say over and over again, my time has not come, or his time, the time is at hand, he would say. Or the time is near, because it was coming close. And eventually, his time came. You see, what they wanted was Jesus to stay. But Jesus understood that this transition, I need to leave so something better can take place, was important. Jesus understood the power of a transition. He understood the power of, okay, I need to move here so that you can receive something completely different. But he didn't just leave us empty-handed. He left us with these reminders so that we could continually look back at what he had done in our lives.